And we are live with once again another episode of the Black Stitch Hockey Cast. This time around, we are on the other side of the start of the NHL season. For real, not just the stuff in NHL Europe to kick off the year. Good old-fashioned North American professional ice hockey as played and governed by the National Hockey League. Which, we're off to a pretty fun start to the season so far. Lots of exciting and interesting narratives, for sure. Some of my whether or not one of my favorite early season things to pay attention to. Real roller coaster of a team night after night from what I've seen so far, which is really fascinating. They definitely don't look like the team that they were a year ago, despite their 2-1 start. Definitely not as intimidating as they have been defensively, which kind of brings me to something that I've noticed that I'm pretty intrigued about, really. Across the league so far, shout out to Hockey Stat Cards over on Twitter and Game Scores, is we've seen a lot of defensemen, really middle four guys, some young guys, some guys on new teams, really just having some rough starts to the season. Obviously in Anaheim, we've only played our one game, so we didn't really have anybody notable in that struggle bus. Obviously, behind closed doors, we've talked about Ty Emberson. I'm a little bit surprised at this point in time that Jamie Drysdale's off to a bit of a slow start in Philly, but I think he's going to clean that up.
Yeah, I have my takes and perspectives on that. One, I think Derek Dunn is really onto something when he says that he's probably dealing with phantom effects of the injury, thinking, I can't move in this sort of way because it's going to cause me pain. So there is that psychological hump that's necessary to get over during such a recovery process. And for another, Sealer is out, so he doesn't have a competent partner that he can slot in with, which means he has to play a more conservative game because there's no one to cover up his deficiencies. So it's like his personal circumstances and the situation with that blue line being the quandary that it is causing a myriad of playing a more restrained game. And that will eventually resolve itself, but right now he's going to be taking some lickings.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, Emberson, on the other hand, is, it's interesting because I talked about this a little bit last week with the Edmonton Oilers D-core not being trustable. And boy, have they proven they can't be trusted so far in the early goings of the 2024-25 campaign. But Chris Knobloch is actually a good hockey coach, so I wouldn't be surprised if Edmonton gets their back end figured out in the next 5 to 10 games and kind of gets it rolling.
Yeah, I think it's actually kind of annoying looking at the narrative of this this is something that can't be overcome because it's kind of become like a gimmick almost of reading into their PDO troubles that are early on. It's like they're disjointed and they deserve to be 0-2 for sure, but you can't look at the shooting percentages and things like that and think it's going to last forever. This is a statistical outlier pointed in a bad direction that isn't going to last even a good chunk of the season, never mind all of it. So.
Though, it is definitely worth a further case study 5 to 10 years from now to understand how the fuck Edmonton just starts so badly every year in the Connor McDavid era. It's kind of mystifying that this group seems to get off to a wobbly start every year.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely makes for some curious analysis, but I'll never treat it as an indictment of the team as a whole. Like it's just we should know better by now, I think,
Yeah, I
especially
mean,
such a
yeah.
case like this.
I mean, what's more surprising is the fact that the Anaheim Ducks won a fucking opening game.
Yeah, that was pretty wild.
That was from what I saw.
Oh, finally, that feedback is gone.
Yeah, I mean, like the Anaheim Ducks on opening day are pretty bad, and like ostensibly speaking, they didn't really play well. They didn't play well enough to deserve to actually win last night, and it really just shows how good of a like they kind of they fucking basically went full Boston Bruins yesterday. Of the team up front didn't play nearly well enough to beat an inferior opponent, but of an absolutely fucking phenomenal goaltending performance. You know, gave them a chance for their depth players to break through. And like the Bruins have had that with Mark Kastelik this season. Apparently, the Ducks had it last night with Lundestrom. Obviously, the New Jersey Devils have had this with Paul Cotter this year. And we've seen some really, and that's so important. Not for us, obviously. Like we all know the Ducks are only going to win maybe 30 games this year and miss the playoffs by a pretty wide swath. But like early in the year, when the points are easy versus where everybody's gunning for a playoff spot at the end, like when your top six doesn't get rolling, if your bottom six is basically fucking stealing 2 points for you every night, like this is the time of year where that's just absolutely fucking critical. Is when like your energy guys can actually win you games at this point in the season. And looking at not to dance on your grave, Damien, the Penguins just being so fucking bad at this last season, like they only
Yeah,
missed the playoffs by what 1 point, and if they had gotten this level of output, production, etc. at the start of last year from their bottom six,
I think it was like 4 points they were out by.
4 points isn't a lot at the beginning of the year. Like
Yeah,
you look
well,
at Minnesota losing in a shootout last night to Seattle, and will that 1 point fuck them in a very tight Central Division 6 months from now?
yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I mean, it's one thing as far as like Pittsburgh, like, yes, we've lost 2 games, but to be fair, again, like New York, I mean, New York played great, but at the same time, like there are things. I think the big takeaway for me that game is Pittsburgh just New York did such a great job at pressuring the point when the defenders had the puck. So Letang, Grzelcyk, having the both of them, having the Pedersen, where they would either just try to force it through just to get a shot on net, which again might not have been the best shot quality, or just predictable passes that just flat-footed. But again, you can't give up double-digit odd man rushes. I don't care unless you're like the '90s Buffalo Sabres. But like in general, again, Rangers played really well too, and it's one thing where I think sometimes in hockey and every sport, sometimes we focus too much on what one team didn't do a good job of, and we don't look at the other team of how great they played. And trust me, Pittsburgh did not play a great game by any means. I mean, again, what was it? The goals saved above or whatever for Chess in that game was like a 3.29. So like analytically, the Pen should have scored 3 goals. But the thing is, just real short, it's like again, they lost to Toronto last night. But in general, I like the effort. I like the play. I think Blomqvist is going to be, there's a lot of strife right now in Pittsburgh as far as like Jari, like you've had a lot of chances, and it's tough. It looks like Blomqvist is going to have the job, and the kids look good. But again, you lost to Toronto, who's I mean they've been a really good really good team so far from what we've seen, and I think they're one of the teams that when you look at some of how they've played down the roster, they've played well. Besides, Benoit, which can we already know where he is in his game and what his role in for Toronto is. But like for me for Pittsburgh this season, like I definitely like how well the bottom six have played. Where like bottom four like Achari, Glass, and Hayes, where like they're fast. Last year our bottom six were old, they were slow, they weren't good. So Pittsburgh, I mean, one thing that we look at a lot of these teams, like you were saying, we're seeing teams being able to have success early in the year, rolling 4 lines, and that is so crucial in today's game.
Well, I mean, when I look at the Penguins, like their problem right now is their decor. Like, Pedersen was terrible on opening night. He was great, to his credit, as was Carlson against Detroit, and then he was awful again against Toronto. So it's clear and obvious that, like, Pedersen and Carlson have been a mixed bag so far, especially in their own zone. Like,
Yeah.
Matt Grzelcyk has been, not nearly as bad, but he's, and again, Grzelcyk gets a little bit of a grace period, just like, really any guy who's on a new team as a defenseman. He has to adjust to the system. He has to adjust to a Penguins team that plays at the speed that they do. But, like, their blue line, with the exception of Chris Letang, has been a fucking mixed bag pretty much every night. And if they, like, that's what they need to solve. Just like with Graves as well. Like, the Penguins D core, like, I don't really care about their goaltending, which I know is a hot take in the current landscape of the Tristan Jarry situation. But, like,
No, you're right. You're right.
he needs. I don't even think he needs consistently good defensive play. He just needs consistently not terrible defensive play in front of him.
And
And
there's been a lot of miscommunications on who's guys who. And like that first goal against Detroit, I was just so frustrated because it's a 3-on-3. Like you guys choose to double the wrong guy. You lose track of the guy in front. Like, sorry, how do you cannot lose track of Alex DeBrincat because
sure you can. He's like, what,
burying,
5'6"?
he's burying the one timer every single time. And it's just right early in the season for Pittsburgh, it's just been a lack of communication at times on the back end. And again, I imagine that's gonna get solved, but just
Yeah, it's possible.
I think it will. I mean, Grzelcyk honestly has looked pretty good. I mean, he's had some bad giveaways, but if you look at
It's fine.
almost every single game besides the Rangers, like they have dominated in the takeaways to giveaways categories, which again, that's how you
Yeah.
win games. It's one thing that they were really bad last year was just way too many giveaways, way too many odd-man rushes, and again, consistency. I mean, it's literally what it comes down to.
On a
And Drew
more,
O'Connor also being consistent
on,
because he was bad in game one, great in game two against Detroit, and then just, kind of disappeared at times against Toronto.
on a more positive note, and I'm going to use this kind of as a segue into our prospect corner in a couple of minutes, but really just wanted to also take a second to really appreciate Jonathan Huberdeau and Sean Monahan both having fucking spectacular nights recently. I think that was, in light of Johnny Gaudreau, and everything that's happened there, seeing, both of those guys, great friends, great teammates, really breaking through the last couple of nights, respectively, for their new and old teams. I I felt warm and fuzzy inside. I didn't feel warm and fuzzy about the Flames beating the Flyers last night. I did feel warm and fuzzy about Huberdeau having that strong game that we've been looking for from him in Calgary. Seeing Monahan be such a key player for Columbus against Colorado also felt great. Um, really, just those are the narratives I really was really hoping we would get here at the beginning of the year. These guys we knew were going to be playing inspired, and when these guys are playing inspired, they're playing for a legacy, they're playing for their friends, their family. Seeing them, really deliver on a level that's, more than them, I think, to me anyway, stirs my lack of emotion to a level of somewhat of a nostalgic joy.
Yeah, and you can't forget Cole Caulfield, too. He's had a really good start to the season.
He has as well, but like when I think of like him and also Kent Johnson have both been phenomenal. Two guys who were heavily influenced by Johnny. That's also worth a great mention. But with all the narratives around Huberdeau and Monahan the last couple of years and their on ice play, to see them break through just feels so fucking special. Like there was never a question in my mind about Johnson and Caulfield figuring it out. But man, with all the narratives and the negativity around the other two, it feels really fucking special to see those two break through again and really show flashes of who they were a couple years ago.
Yeah. I want this and think this might be like the year where Hubes kind of like comes back and for that to be the jumping off point was something I didn't mind really. Like I won't lie, like I still dropped a clip in my GC when that game got done of that old cartoon, The Oblongs, that Will Ferrell voice acted back in the early 2000s, where it's just the child of that family blowing out the candles on his birthday cake and saying, "I wish I was dead." But like, you know, we love the individual narratives, and I was like, and I even thought like, uh, you know, about the by prompting by my buddy Zach, who runs the Flyers Clips account, like, you know, a proposed bad contract for bad contract trade was Couturier for Huberdeau, and I would have taken that even without this benefit of hindsight, to be honest with you. So, like, for that to really be on the table in a way that's like in front of you as something like that, where he is actually having a surgence, is really, really heartwarming, honestly. Um, but so for this week's dev developments, let's see. Jeff Merrick has resurfaced and is doing some phenomenal independent reporting, and has been providing us with some good CHL gems and whatnot. He he it was through him that I found the Sudbury Wolves comment on the trade request made by San Jose Sharks prospect Quentin Musty, who has not reported to the team and has been staying at home. And his status, there's some ambiguity about what's going to happen. A key quote from that, according to Jeff's caption, since I'll just keep it somewhat succinct, he's highlighted this specifically. If a deal arises that significantly improves our team, we will consider it. Until then, Quentin remains an important part of the Sudbury Wolves, and he is welcome to join the team at any time. But let's see. There's some more stuff on the CHL NCAA Forbidden Door going on. Let's see. Mike McMahon reported that the NCAA D1 Council will vote on the rule in November. And Ryan Kennedy added to that story that, let's see, regarding the impending CHL NCAA news, not only are schools already calling agents to gauge interest on their young clients, they're also calling CHL teams right now to get phone numbers for kids. So that, could be indicative of the direction that the vote is could be headed in. We could see maybe not an overwhelming yes vote, but it could very well pass when push comes to shove. Let's see. I would like to read some the governance update about pre-enrollment activities regarding this released by the D1 Council. Actually, I did have that bookmarked. I didn't really look it over too much, other than like the brass tacks. Let's see. Yeah, this is pretty short, actually. The Division One Council on Tuesday introduced a proposal to change rules for pre-enrollment activities in men's ice hockey and skiing, which would enable prospects who participate in major junior ice hockey or on professional teams to retain NCAA eligibility as long as they are not paid more than actual and necessary expenses as part of that participation. The introduction of the legislation is not final until the council's meeting concludes Wednesday. As the council continues its review of the full spectrum of NCAA eligibility rules, this proposal, focused on a singular issue, represents a pragmatic step in aligning skiing and men's ice hockey with other sports in terms of allowable pre-enrollment activities, said Josh Whitman, athletics director at the University of Illinois and chair at the council. The proposal, let's see, will be considered during the council's November meeting. If approved, the proposed effective date would be August 1st, 2025. The council also continued its discussions about other eligibility concepts, including pre-enrollment eligibility concepts, as well as seasons of competition and redshirt rules for sports other than football. Let me pull up another big development in the NCAA realm. Let's see. All right. Let's see. So there was, of course, in that space, there was the elimination of the national letter of intent. So these are the key takeaways from the new signing model as described by the council itself via the NCAA's PR department. Keeps the core benefits of the NLI program, streamlines the signing process for PSAs and institutions, removes one document, NLI, from the institutional procedures already established for processing athletic aid agreements, reduces administrative tasks for creating and uploading documents, reduces confusion between NLI provisions and NCAA legislation, reduces confusion between NLI provisions and NCAA legislation, let's see, provides autonomy for institutions to manage their athletic aid agreements, provides consistency between four-year transfers and PSAs, signing athletic aid agreements before an initial four-year enrollment, provides transparency for all institutions to comply with the recurring commitment. You know, I think it's pretty cool to see them retool that system. And, you know, it was kind of becoming obsolete since it wasn't preventing guys from, you know, really being active in the transfer portal anyways, or changing their commitment beforehand. So it's like, it was kind of becoming just obsolete. So I don't really even mind that they got rid of it. Mike McMahon says, on the elimination of the NLI, it's notable, but it will not be a seismic shift in recruiting. The NCAA is essentially moving the NLI program in-house. Athletes will sign athletics aid agreements instead of NLI. Details are still being worked out. Let's see what else we got. Let's see. So Jeff Merrick again, citing him. Quick note to address rumors about a QMJHL team moving to Newfoundland. I can confirm that there is a group interested in purchasing the Acadie Bathurst Titan who firmly want the team relocated to St. John's, Newfoundland as early as next season. One issue, and it's the big one that complicates this purchase/relocation, is travel and who pays for it. That has plagued NFLD teams for years. To say the Titan are moving is premature right now, as there's still plenty to figure out. Additionally, teams around the queue don't seem to have much information on the situation at this point. But that's an interesting thing to have on the table at all, really. Be cool if it actually landed this time, although I would feel bad for the Acadie Bathurst faithful to be losing their club in that manner. Let's see. Robert Chalmers reports quietly we have our second CHL NCAA commit, Maddox Marmaluka, the QMJHL Acadie Bathurst Titan, committed to the NCAA Cornell Big Red in July. And in the wake of recent CHL NCAA news, he moved from the BCHL to the QMJHL. For his Instagram, he is both a Cornell commit and a forward for Bathurst. So there's another interesting step in that process. Additionally, perhaps in correspondence with this, Zachary Morin, 2025 draft eligible prospect, has left the Youngstown Phantoms of the USHL per Jeff Merrick and joined the St. John Sea Dogs of the QMJHL, which was confirmed in a more public manner directly by their X page. We have to give credit, of course, to Jamie Tozer at St. John Sea Dogs / QMJHL blogs, Station Nation, for being all over this story. This is an interesting pivot for Morin, as he was originally committed to Boston University. And now we can say that that path is actually something that's viable, to have that both of those steps potentially within the next year, rather than him seemingly carrying out a cry for help and choosing the Q over BU. But now he might be able to have his cake and eat it too, depending on what his path is and how this legislation plays out. Let me see. I only got like a couple more things. But yeah, there was a trade in the queue as well. Rare 1-for-1, wherein Joseph Henbury from the Victoriaville Tigers was traded to the Cape Breton Eagles in exchange for Olivier Hood. That was announced 5 days ago. Is that the only transaction? Yeah, really the only thing I had on my radar anyway. Let's see. Yeah, I'll skip that. That's not too significant, really. Although it was actually, just for a laugh, I will mention that for um, their involvement in a fight, goaltenders Jack Ivankovich of Brampton and Owen Flores of Niagara were both suspended for 4 games as a result of receiving a game misconduct or matching game misconduct rather, but you know what I mean. A goaltender fight as well as a second fight, same stoppage on October 6th. This was dated to October 8th. So that was pretty amusing headline. Definitely the most eye-catching disciplinary one I had seen recently. Kind of amusing seeing Ivankovich really go for it as one of the top prospects at his position in this class, and not very much lasting very long in that fight. But I appreciated the tenacity. Let's see, some USHL stuff I wanted to go over. Yeah, so for an update on the team that's kind of become our de facto concentration in the league, for some updates on the Dubuque Fighting Saints, their record now sits at 5-2-0, including a perfect 3-0 record at home. This past week, their results included a 7-4 win over defending champion Fargo Force, who of course defeated them in the Clark Cup Finals last year. So a nice little bit of closure there, if not necessarily full-on retribution. And they fell to the Sioux Falls Stampede the next night, 6-3. Their next game is against the Omaha Lancers, who incidentally just fired their head coach. So to provide some sort of entertaining details on that, I do have a story here somewhere. Let me see. I know what I can do. Let's see. Stupid. Oh, here we go. From Brad Elliott Schlossman, the Omaha Lancers are replacing head coach Lenny Childs on after just 4 games. He reported on the 9th. Colton St. Clair, an alternate captain on the University of North Dakota's 2016 NCAA title team, will be the Lancers' 8th head coach since 2021. To provide some perspective there, you thought the top pro leagues had turnover? That was some next level stuff right there. So I thought that was pretty amusing. I don't know. So I'll go over some hypotheses of what has caused this volatility. One person opined, ownership, recruiting, development, you name it, man. This one's franchise is an absolute joke. I've seen their games since I was 11 months old all the way through, and they've just gone downhill slowly but surely. Additionally, as another commentator pointed out, the team is in an ongoing lawsuit because of one of 2 ownership groups has absolutely no say in operations and can't even look at the books, allegedly. So some very strong Erie Otters energy going on there. And on one final, more solemn note, we learned that after a fairly lengthy cancer battle, former OHL battalion forward Curtis Evans passed away at the age of 23. It was announced 6 days ago after having happened just a couple of days prior. And let me to give some proper respects here and not leave this too succinct. If we're going to leave off on something like this, I'll read directly from the OHL's statement. The Ontario Hockey League is saddened by the passing of former North Bay Battalion forward Curtis Evans, who died following a battle with cancer on October 3rd, 2024, at the young age of 23. Evans from Uxbridge, Ontario, played for the battalion from 2017 to 2019 after being a third-round pick by the club in the 2017 OHL priority selection from the Central Ontario Wolves AAA program. Evans is remembered by friends and family and leaves behind parents Brad and Holly and brother Jackson. The OHL sends heartfelt thoughts and condolences to all affected at this time. The Evans family would appreciate donations to the Ewing's Cancer Foundation of Canada as a tribute to Curtis' memory. For more on the life of Curtis Evans, visit lowandlow.ca. So on that note, I also had to extend, my sincerest condolences to all those affected. I will drop a link very shortly for the Ewing's Foundation if anyone would like to donate to that cause. Let's see. This is facilitated by the Sick Kids Foundation per their website. Okay, there we go. And with that, we wrap up our my dev corner for this week.
Speaking of interesting developments, we spoke behind closed doors earlier about the Capo Kakinen waiver claim, but with Ville Husso now being on the waiver wire, I know he's making 4.75, but like, is there a team that has the cap room to absorb that actually like goes and gets that? Like, I know we talked about Edmonton a little bit earlier, but like, are the Oilers like they have the raw salary cap to do it? Do the Oilers say fuck it, we're gonna go get Ville Husso, we'll waive Picard, and we'll run a Husso Skinner tandem the rest of the way? Like this guy, he's a legit 1B goalie in the National Hockey League.
Yeah, he is. With that defense, I mean, with how the defense is playing, I mean, trust me, I love Ville Husso. When he was backing up Binner, I was like, yo, dude, give Husso the starting position.
Well, here's the thing. The Blues also have a roster spot in the cat. As of right now, the Blackhawks, Capitals, Oilers, Blues, Sabres, Habs, Abs, Sharks, Kings, Utah, Calgary, Anaheim, and Jackets all have the cap space to make this waiver claim if they want to.
I just don't think Ville Husso is, at this point, an impact goalie who's going to go out and make these big, timely saves for some of these clubs. And it's the same thing right now, right, when we look at Pittsburgh, like we're talking with Tristan Jarry, where does his defense put him in bad situations? Absolutely. But for some of these guys like Tristan Jarry, you can tell that he is not confident. You can tell that so much just his body language, how he plays. And it's kind of been the same thing with Ville Husso for the last two teams he's played for, where I love Husso, and he's had several good games. I'm not going to take that away from him. But it's the same thing, right? We look at Detroit. We look at their lack of ability to play defense. And, yeah, I think he's a solid goalie. There's a reason why he's in the NHL. And, yeah, I think he's a good 1B. It's just some of these teams like the Edmonton Oilers, I just don't see a change of scenery going from, I mean, don't get me wrong, Detroit's blue line is not good. But besides Edmonton's top pairing like we talked last week, I just don't see Husso being any more likely to make those timely saves in Edmonton because he struggled with that in Detroit. He struggled with that towards the end in St. Louis. So again, maybe maybe the change of scenery going to Edmonton, maybe. I don't see it.
I mean, and then there's the elephant in the room. He's been awful this year in one start, but like, he's not any worse than Alexander Georgiev has been.
Oh, he's not. I'm not saying that. I mean, I like a Kokkonen. I'm not gonna lie. I like the Kokkonen signing. I thought he was not the problem last season. San Jose,
I mean,
I thought he outdueled Blackwood, and
I
even
just
in
need
New
to.
Jersey.
I need to put this out here for you right now. At the moment, Billy Huso has a 74.2% save this season. Alexander Georgiev is sitting at a 68.
We talked about this last season, though, right? Like, Georgiev was probably one of the worst all-star selections of all time. Where, like, again, going back to the goddamn
I
Tampa Bay
just
goalie that you compared him to, Ranford.
Bill Ranford, yeah.
Ranford. Back to the Bill Ranford comparison, right? Like, Colorado, and again, we've talked about it. Like, Colorado definitely lost some depth over like the last two seasons, but in general, absolutely. Like, Gorgiev, cool. You led the wins category, and a lot of that was the team. I mean, again, you look at Nathan McKinnon, you look at Cale Makar, you look at Drouin's career year last season, where he set a high in points. Like, I agree. I mean, yeah, I think Huso would definitely be an upgrade. I'm not. But at this point, I think statistically, I think almost any goalie you look at is going to be a statistical upgrade from Gorgiev.
Except his current backup, Justice Noonan, who is still somehow worse. It's crazy, man, how actually no, Noonan's at a 76.5, you know? You know, he's so much better at the fact that their GSAA currently cumulatively in Colorado is a -8 is absolutely fucking mythological.
Dude,
Like,
that's
to be a -8 2 fucking games into the season is like,
that's on pace to crush Forsberg and freaking Corpus Salos from last season, like a -20, and I think Forsberg like a -9.
I mean, at the aggregated rate, we're talking about like a potential for a negative. Like, I need to do some math here, knowing how scaling works. I mean, if at this trajectory, we're talking about like, God, the math is hard right now. Realistically, you're talking about a cumulative duo potentially posting a GSAA of like -70. And you're like, why didn't you just multiply 8 by 41? Because that's not how scalable fucking metrics work. But like, these guys are on pace to have like anti-Ken Dryden, Bernie Perrant 70s numbers, where those dudes were putting up GSAAs in the low 60s, 70s, just because the relative fucking scale of the rest of the NHL goaltending was absolutely fucking ass. So like, the fact that right now we exist in a world, we exist in a universe where the combination of Georgiev and Anunanen could be potentially as bad as Perrant and Dryden were good is absolutely fucking hysterical.
Yeah,
Like,
that is.
we talking about Bill Ranford. I'd honestly rather take 1994 Bill Ranford over 24-25 Georgiev at this point. And that's not saying much, but like the Avalanche are a Stanley Cup caliber starting 6, starting 5. Like their top 8 players are Stanley Cup caliber. And their bottom 9 forward group, bottom pairing D in goaltending is so bad that we could potentially be talking about like, you know, early 80s Los Angeles Kings type, you know, beat where elite forward group, elite high-end skill players, and just no fucking depth or goaltending to get them anywhere.
Yeah, Kelly Hrudey.
Oh man, yeah, I kind of thought Detroit's goaltending situation was tough with like 4 backups, but holy shit.
Hey, man. It's a damn shame that Roger Vachon retired before the Kings figured out how to score goals.
Rudy's stats from their cup final run are hilarious. Freaking record of 18, 21, and 6 with a 3.6 and an 8.97. And then in the postseason, like, he was 10 and 10 with the fucking 352 against an 8.87. How the hell did they even win a finals game? Never mind get there. Like, I know they had Wayne Gretzky and the fucking, like, you know, pretty solid supporting cast, but like that's just unbelievable, dude.
Yeah. You know, that team in hindsight, like, that team was definitely interesting. I mean, Marty McSorley putting up just under 400 PIMs on the year.
Yep.
The fact that Rob Stauber was marginally better than Rudy on a night-by-night basis and was still fucking ass. Man, what a team. Like, how the fuck? How the
I feel
fuck?
like 90 goaltending stats are always wild to
No.
look at.
What's wild to me is how the fuck did this team get to the finals with 5 guys over 100 PIMs and 2 guys over 300?
Good
Like, what the
weekend.
fuck? Like, bro, how the fuck do you have 5 guys over 100 PIMs on the same team?
How many shorthanded goals did they score that year?
I mean, probably a decent amount because Gretzky, but like, they only scored like 19 shorthanded goals, which is kind of a lot.
Yeah.
But like, how the fuck do you have 5 guys over 100 PIMs? Like, what the?
Yeah. As you can infer, most penalized team in the regular season that year being shorthanded 529 times.
That's just crazy.
Like,
You have no right
and
to make the
coached by
playoffs.
Barry Melrose as well. Like, it's certainly one of the teams of all time.
That's like
They are
Oakland logic. Like Oakland Raiders numbers, except like you're still making the playoffs.
You know, with the context of that, you know for a damn fact that I usually don't accuse the NHL of rigging playoff games, but the fact that they beat the Leafs in 7 games really calls into question the integrity of NHL officiating at that point.
Let's see. No, I got into the real esoteric part of this where I got record for single player shorthanded goals on a Los Angeles Kings playoff run. It's a 4-way tie between Brown and Kopitar on the 11-12 run, and Dave Taylor and Yari Curry on that 92-93 team, with all 4 of them having had 2. Makes sense for different reasons.
Yeah. Fucking A, man.
There was some, maybe because I'm looking at the freaking I've got Saginaw versus Sioux going on right now, which is appropriate considering Gretzky was a former Greyhound. Like, I wonder if both teams just watched 92-93 Los Angeles Kings highlights for inspiration for this game, because there was a combined 18 minor penalties in the first period alone. Fucking matchup. Like, their fucking special teams unit were really getting practice in, but like somehow there were no goals scored throughout that entire process. So I guess the lessons didn't really stick as much as they should have. I tell you though, Michael Mesa's been on a fucking tear. So as the supplement that I actually did have prepped for that dev block, he is now up to fucking 11 goals in 8 games so far on the season, with an additional 3 assists to go along with that. Fucking like so that's a pretty strong run, as he's trying to make like a big impression on like his in his DY. But like here's the game by game. So when they kicked off the season against Windsor, he had 2 goals in that matchup, as I talked about when it went down. Then their next game, also against Sioux, he had a hat trick and an assist, so like 6 points in his first 2 games, and going to town with those 5 goals. Then he had a 2-goal game against Sarnia, and then another goal in their next matchup against Sarnia. 2 goals and an assist against Erie, and an assist against Kitchener, and a goal now in this game against Sioux, and we'll see what happens in the run. It's like he's like very consistent with some serious flashes of dominance going in, and it's interesting seeing him like pivot to like a goal scorer after having been like a playmaker throughout like his entire dev. Although it makes sense because I always thought he was built more like a sniper than a prime playmaker. But like he's just been on some like fucking Alex DeBrincat type shit. In fact, I did note, drop that in there, like, and now it's appropriate that Cat came up earlier. Let me pull up the exact stat again. I got it here somewhere. Oh yeah, Michael. I knew it. Michael Mesa is just the second OHL player in the past 27 years of league history to score 10 goals through his first 5 games of the season, after DeBrincat did so during 2015-16 for Erie in his DY, where he scored 51 goals. So it's like, I would love for Mesa just to go like the full bleach blonde hair and really just like rub it in, like if he's going to be on a tear like this during the season.
I'm guessing, Damien, based on your reaction to Nothing Funny, you saw the meme I just dropped in the chat.
I did.
My brain goes to some strange places while listening to this podcast.
Especially those, especially like during these digressions, and even during the dev blocks, like Christian reacts to Liam CHL corner is always a classic.
Yeah, when the intrusive thoughts and the ADHD aren't like, hey, look, there's a white wall in front of me. Sometimes I can really churn out some really phenomenal brain rot content.
Yeah. I feel like it's kind of like one of those, like when you ask AIs to like recap something, and like the AI recap is just the meme that you come up with. Like, yeah.
I really, I'd love an AI recap of this, because I feel like it would somehow be just as, if not more, brain rot than what I put in here.
Oh man.
Smoking.
Quality though.
Yeah, man, that Herb Brooks hits different on, a February night in Lake Placid.
Leave it to me though, just to have like mental breakdowns where I'm like, shit, I don't know how to like repronounce this guy's name, even though I've been pronouncing it for like the last 20 years.
Hey man, it's all good, It's all good. It's all gravy.
I got that CTE, like, listening to Ken Danico talk about fucking hockey games for the Devils, and it's like, guy, like, I can hear it.
My favorite thing about Ken Danico analyzing hockey, though, is the combination of, like, the brain rot from alcoholism, the CTE, and the fact that this dude never even knew how to play hockey in the first place. And it all comes together for just absolutely C-tier content, which is exactly what Devils fans deserve.
Yeah, well, it's like between him and Jack Edwards, it's probably being my 2 least favorite commentators. And like with Jack Edwards' take on Reddit the other night about the goalie interference call, being like, oh, if you look over the crease, he wasn't in the crease. The goalie was out of the crease, and it's literally the forward hitting the goalie while the goalie's in the crease. I'm like, Jack.
Hey, man, the only difference between Ken Danico and Jack Edwards is that there's reasons to like Ken Danico from when he was winning championships in New Jersey.
He's also entertaining to listen to.
Yeah, like Jack Edwards just like I actually watched the Bruins game yesterday on Nesson, and I didn't think about killing myself a single fucking time.
Doesn't look good.
Yeah.
I agree, Liam. There's hope for me now that Jack Edwards is retired. Yo, fuckers are stuck with me.
Damn. Not often you see a skater get the worst of a collision with a goalie, but that Sioux skater seems to have have had that very interesting fate befallen upon him.
Who are they playing?
Saginaw.
I told you my brain was rotted.
It's all good.
Yeah, like MCLA's hockey equipment.
I'm not touching that one with a fucking 30-foot pole.
Oh yeah, it looks like the knee just had a very, very awkward collision with his pads. Bonus? Yeah.
Oh.
Wow. Well, there are layers to this one.
Now can I get a meme in on this?
Sam bonus. There we go. Who's in between the pipes again? Okay, yeah, it is Andrew Oka, right? Makes sense. It is kind of a premier matchup, so you want your 1A in there.
Yeah, nice. Take this nice quiet time to give a shout out to Gigi Marvin for a phenomenal hockey career. It's pretty. The video of her announcing retirement hit pretty hard. It's pretty awesome to see her play. You know, the inaugural season for PWHL Boston, and yeah, she just had such a great career. You look at everything she did for U.S. hockey, obviously women's hockey. Like, it's just so great to see her play all those years, and she's definitely going to have a great legacy for both women's hockey and U.S. hockey. So shout out to her.
And for having one of the best names of all time. I'm gonna miss sitting in the Songa Center yelling GG every time she blocks a shot on a penalty kill, like an absolute menace.
Well, that was disappointing. Zane Parekh just had like a grade A, and I think he just like sailed it into the netting Josh Anderson style. Glenn Wesley would be proud of that one.
It's like I was at a pretty large bonfire last night talking to a former youth hockey player, reflecting on his career with the shirt from his brother of, yeah, buddy, you missed the net more times than you hit it. Yeah, but I hit the net more often than I hit the goalie. And I just looked at him and said, oh, so you're Cutter Gauthier now. But before Cutter Gauthier. To which everybody around me had no idea what the fuck I was talking about, but the point still stands that that guy was ahead of his time. It was either into the glass or into the net, no in between. High shot diet, no aim. If he was born 10 years later, he could have probably played D1.
Pretty much. Like, we're really seeing this these perennially relevant like friggin' they're like they you look at some of these guys who come up through the NCAA route, phenomenal shot mechanics with a terrible diet and aim that's either phenomenal and beats the goalie clean, or it just goes full Chairman Mao and pulls a freaking cultural revolution, just destroying plexiglass.
Fuck.
You know, that isn't even like the best like historic like tragedy joke that I had prepped for this, because I was gonna tap into Harrison Brunica's South African roots and say that his aspirations of going directly to the NHL were necklaced effectively. But
I think the juxtaposition to all of this was, as you were saying this, I was pivoting away from the Winnipeg game, and I'm like, Frank Corrado is relevant enough to work for TSN now. So I'm looking at Frankie Corrado. I pivot back, and I just hear about fucking Mao, and I'm like, yeah, Frankie Corrado working for TSN is definitely the outcome of communism.
oh man. If we
As I
can
see his
get,
little.
you know what? I'm torn now as to whether or not we want that to be like an out of context caption for when this episode goes up, or if we want the Greyhound meme to be the presented without context episode 53 is up now. Like, you really can't go wrong with either one. Let's see. This is the latest one. The chat hasn't refreshed for me. It shows that like the new message notification. Okay, there we go. Oh, that is good.
I am queuing up another more generic one that needs to exist, though. That's what I do. This is, me getting back to adding some fucking memes in after a few weeks. It was needed, man.
Oh,
I haven't had a chance to be. And on that note, as I send this cursed image into the ether of Black Stitch Hockey's background, I think we should roll towards a big finish, because we're riding some momentum, and
okay, that's gotta be it. That's gotta be the if like I'm handcuffed and can only use one promotional image. That's gotta be the one.
I think we're gonna need to include multiple replies, because now anybody that listens to this needs the context to all of these now that they've been
Yeah,
spoken to.
like on Meta, we can clump them all together, which is a nice, convenient feature. On Twitter, that might have to be a mega thread, just because it's like I think the algorithms deserve it pretty much.
This is some of my best work.
It
Signs that
really
I have
is.
tomorrow off from work and I am free flowing tonight.
Speaking of postal holidays, did your mail arrive?
All I had in my mailbox when I got back today was something addressed to somebody that doesn't live here anymore.
Yeah, it's about on track. Right. Yeah, we'll see if.
Po- Postal Service just hates me wherever I go. I
Yeah,
gotta get a Rod Smart style "He Hate Me" jersey, but it's just USPS hate me.
yeah. I mean, evidently, like UPS gets it, but USPS has subjected this one freaking envelope to an RTS twice, even though everything is matched up, which UPS understood, but they didn't. Yeah, the Louis DeJoy effect, man. Uh, But yeah, so on that note, though, we'll roll it over into the big finish, and to do for my point this week, and this is something I've been engaged in some discourse with. Shout out to my boy Jack, also known as Petco Power Play with an I instead of an L on Twitter. For really, or Pico rather. My bad. Uh, um, for really framing this with some conversations we've had. But before I get into that, so swinging back to our perennially favorite, seemingly no longer an underdog WHL squad, the Victoria Royals. In their matchup last night, they emerged victorious, 6-3 over the Wenatchee Wild. Tanner Scott was the first star of that game with the 2-goal and 1-assist performance with a +3. Nate Miskey was the second star, 2 goals, 1 assist, and a +2. And Keaton Verhoff, the RHD that was seemingly constructed in shell by every scout and GM on the planet, had a 2 assist and a +1 performance for the third star. Cole Rezhny had a primary assist in that game, was phenomenal on the faceoff dot, and I'm going to focus in on him for my take this week. Or it's the primary one. I have a secondary one as well, but I really think that in addition to my other eyeballing narrative of I think that Misa can reclaim his spot as the #1 player in this class, although it's still early in James Hagen's season, so he does kind of have a bit of a handicap at this point, just by virtue of not having played as many games or getting as much of a look. Obviously, the NCAA has a shorter season in terms of games played as is, but enough to accrue adequate data. But nevertheless, Misa's got the head start and he doesn't. But I also think that, as Jack and I have discussed, I think Rezhny's game is very reminiscent of Zach Benson, but if Benson were a better skater on the whole, and maybe like a bit more of a 200-foot player as well. With that in mind, despite his diminutive stature, I think he could be playing in the NHL as a D+1 kid from the jump and possibly even last the whole season. NHL readiness is something that, sometimes it's more subtle. We've seen that with the Jet Luchenko thing, although I think I got to give credit to my boy Jason from Flyers Daily, who popped in on the Twitter space I did last night, which was freaking awesome, especially considering it was completely impromptu. Some great dialogue, and he answered my question well. He was selected at that spot under the pretenses of he looked pretty safe to be at least a 200 gamer, but then he also had in training camp these ridiculously huge surges of development, which can happen at that age. Jumps can happen in these clumps of time, big time, through the ages of 17, 18, 19. So, which also, makes it better in some respects that, this is a product of him moving along rather than they detected this and it happened, because he seemed to have beaten even the brain trust expectations there. But sometimes there are guys where it's obvious, like Benson or Rezhny. And I think even though he's not getting his flowers for it, we still see him in the 20s in some of these draft mocks and whatnot, which I think is just absolute terrorism. I think he is definitely cut out to be one of those guys. And on an adjacent note to expectations in these coming seasons, I really do think after his first point and after his these phenomenal shifts he's had, even when the points haven't come, and they are going to, I think Michkov's going to have a really good year. I think his sophomore season in the NHL is going to be really solid as well. I think it's going to be a few years before he is absolutely dominant, because he is a top 2% player probably in terms of the cerebral aspect of his game. But I think I agree with what Derek Dunn said as an extension of our comments on how teams are handling development and pushing it forward, how the mega thread that he turned Christian's point into on that topic. I think that for someone like him, the physicals are going to take a while to catch up to his brain. You can even see it just in his physique now. He's not gonna he's he's got some excess weight on him, and not all of it is muscle. Like, he definitely is not on that Travis Sanheim diet of having turned into an absolute Hulk, as you hear about everybody in our camp at least once in like the past few years. Like, the whole or handful of years rather, like the whole freaking like 20 pounds of muscle thing has become a meme. Obviously, it's exaggerated because like nobody really, even at the absolute top, can put on that much muscle in one summer. But like there is a considerable amount of it as body fat. But like within the next couple of years, especially like with him having only recently just like seen the inside of a weight room, not literally, but you know what I mean. But really starting to take it seriously, like the whole 200 pounds primarily, like with a lot of that being muscle composition, is going to be on the table for him. And I think that's really when it's going to take off. Like year 3 and is when I think we're going to see Michkov begin to become who he's going to be in like his mid-20s when he's in his absolute prime. We're going to get a lot then. But I think Briere, as heavy-handed as he's handling the topic, it does have a point that we're not going to fully see that in these 19/20 seasons. It's going to be really good, but I think 21, 22, that's really when we're going to see the takeoff happen.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. So yeah, a couple of quick big finish points. So Sarah Fillier still not under contract. According to The Athletic in the New York Times, the big disagreement right now in the troubles of the contract talks is that Fillier wants a 2-year contract. She doesn't want 3. Where New York, obviously, like all these other picks who come in, they get signed the first round. It's usually a 3-year deal. So that's where the big dispute right now is, where that contract talk is at, according to a source from that column. But quick, just a couple of cool milestones. So Malkin, with his 4 assists in the season, he hit number 800, as well as hitting 1,300 career points. Big milestones, so congrats for him. Crosby is at 1,599 points, and very well could get number 1,600 against his favorite team growing up, Montreal Canadiens, tomorrow night. So a couple of impressive stats. Yeah, buddy, looking forward to it.
Real quick, three college hockey points that I want to hit on in 60 seconds or less. Big love to Jacob Fowler for shutting out Michigan State to open out the year. Yes, they split the series 1-1 with Mich State. Don't give a fuck. You got a shutout to open the year, and that's what matters. Second point, Army did not beat the University of Maine, so Maine is a better program than UMass Lowell. Shout out to Owen Fowler for getting 3 points in his Black Bear debut in that game. And last but not least, shout out to UMass Lowell for defeating the washed-up disappointment allegations by pulling at least one big win out against Minnesota Duluth this weekend. That 4-1 win has not redeemed them for their transgressions of the 2023-24 season, but it's a fucking start to not being a fucking third-rate hockey program with a fourth-rate deck.
Yeah, I can get down with that. Yeah, we have a fuller picture now of the beginning phases in the foot that teams started off on, now that teams other than Buffalo and New Jersey have played. Now, although it does seem, for the time being, the Paul Cotter hot start was not an apparition. So the memes will continue about how that was the Tom Brady pick of trades, basically, and how he is going to be in the running for the Hart. But there is going to be plenty of other, interesting stuff to discuss. For a quick update on that OHL game, Sioux emerged victorious 3-2 over Saginaw. And on that note, I really, really am going to buckle down these couple of days and, start putting out prospect profiles again, along with KHL stuff. Zavragin's season continues to be interesting. He's still just putting up these mind-boggling stats. Now, of course, having returned to SCA, on loan from Sochi, which is something I don't think I've ever seen before, where a loan gets interrupted during the year. But clearly their situation called for it, and clearly he proved himself enough to do so. So, all very exciting stuff, and we're looking forward to talking about it, covering it, and hopefully having this engaged audience continuously. Thank you to everyone who's tuned in. Thank you to everybody checking us out on Spotify and YouTube. And, I want to thank everyone who was engaged with my side pod of sorts now over on the subsection of Flyers Twitter. To have that very fun live reaction to a season opener was great. And then to have, get Jason Mercedes on for the pregame show spontaneously was freaking mind blowing. And I love that we had a really good audience for that, because that was a really great individual experience for me. And to everybody who was interested and invested in that, I really appreciate that, and alongside everything else you've been doing, and I hope to continue to provide great things for you. We'll see you again next week, and hey, I may even, depending on what our schedule is like, I may even see some of you sooner than that. We could very well have another space. We'll see. I'll keep you updated on when episode 3 comes, because our aspiration is to do it at least once a month, but we might have an even more rapid schedule than that, depending on how we decide to go about it. Take care, everybody. Have a great night.